I really like this deck. It's one of my newer ones. I was using the Sage Goddess Gemstone Oracle cards. Maybe it's backwards. So I was really drawn to using this deck. I've been using it for myself to see what card, what crystal I should use. Usually I have the crystals in this deck, but, and sometimes if I don't, I use a different way of harnessing that property. So for example, if the card had something to do with self-love and I didn't have the crystal that it was suggesting, then I can use an essential oil that would promote self-love, like the rose roller bottle that I have, or, you know, do a yoga practice or work on the heart chakra, because they also say, I don't know if you can see here, probably not, but in the pictures it also said the chakra that it was associated with. So if you know about that, then there are different ways to use these decks, and that's what I really liked about it. So the survey that I had asked if anybody wanted to help me with, a lot of you were interested not only in oils but also in crystals and in tarot, which I was pretty surprised about the tarot actually, and I thought that this was a way, well, tarot and oracle, and I thought this was a way to combine the crystals and the tarot, which is what we do in Blossoms United. So I already took almost all of the courses that we offer except for the Life Code Aromatherapy, and that's the one that I'm going to start next, well, in a few days, in January. With a couple of the ladies, we want to form an accountability group, so I'm really excited about that. But so there is a huge difference between Oracle and Tarot. I know right now I kept saying Tarot, but with the Oracle, you have a clear message like you saw if you saw any of the other cards that I posted for other people, in case you didn't get your own reading. It has like a clear message. I like to use these for my card pulls of the day, and it just gives me really inspiring messages. Some decks have just inspiring messages, or like these that say why you pulled it, and I was pulling the card Bismuth, which literally said you're pulling this card because you need to slow down, which is a big problem for me. So that's why I wanted to share with you guys. Sorry. But the tarot is a lot more detailed, where it doesn't have as much words. If it has a word, it's mainly just, you know, to mention the arcana, like High Priestess, or you know, Four of Cups and so forth. So with the tarot is more to ask more specific questions, and you can get very detailed with just a simple card spread with the tarot. And the oracle just basically gives you a message, which you can ask questions with the oracle as well, just that the tarot would be a lot more detailed. So I do offer readings for both in my store, thedreamingyogi.storenvy.com, and I could post that in the comments below. But I had a great question from Sonia, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. She was asking how I picked these cards, these crystals for you guys. So I wanted to share because we learned a whole bunch of techniques in the certification course that I took, the Holistic Tarot Reading in Blossoms United. And I used a couple of these, and I'm going to explain why, because if you kind of scroll through the comments, a couple people got 2 cards, some got 1, and that was not done out of, you know, my own doing. It just kind of happened. So I'm going to explain what I did. I always bless my cards, just kind of thank them for the insight that they give me, and thank them after each reading. And I did have to do kind of like a little cleansing ritual that I do before each reading, so that sometimes in the process of learning, as I was doing the card readings for others, you know, at the very, very beginning, I would sometimes feel like maybe the card was meant for me. So I've learned a lot of techniques to distinguish when it's for me or when it's for somebody else, and cleansing it from the previous reading so it's not still attached with my focus of that person, if that makes sense. And all of this is a lot more detailed in the certification course if anybody is interested in learning how to read for yourself or others. So that's why it took me a long time to do it. After I picked a card, I always put it back and cleansed it again, because a couple of you got the same card. You can have the same messages for different people. And the same card will mean something different for each person, because we all live different lives. So I shuffle my cards, and I don't have a table in front of me, but I just shuffle them. And I also kind of just loosely do this so that and most of the time a card will fall out. I just shuffle it, and it's all based on intention. My only question was what crystal card was meant for the person that I was doing the reading for. And as I do this and just shuffle them, sometimes a card will fall out. And that card, sometimes it was, a lot of the times it was just one card that would fall out, and that one I knew that it was for the person that was next in the line of comments. And the first time, two fell out. The first time somebody got two cards, two fell out, and I knew that those two cards were for that person. So it's all about intuition. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There's just a lot of techniques that you can use. I also use a selenite on top of my deck to cleanse them. And so that's my favorite way, just letting a card fall out. Now, there was some times that like 5 or 10 fell out of this huge deck of, I don't know if there's like 44 or 50 or so cards in here. So when a big chunk fell out, because sometimes, you know, it just doesn't mean that all of them were meant for that person, I would spread them out before really looking at the cards. I like to do this kind of like with my eyes closed and not really focusing on like, ooh, this crystal's prettier or something. And from those 10, for example, I would lay them out, and then I would pull out my pendulum. And this is one of my favorite. I'm really, really drawn to this one. I got it at the farmer's market when I was working the farmer's market here in Texas. And I really like this one because it has an amethyst, which allows me to connect more to my intuition. And then it also has a clear quartz on top and on the bottom. And it's a point. And points, I don't know if you can see it. And points direct the energy out. So I just love it because it just kind of feels like it has a mind of its own. I just love doing this pendulum work. So when a big selection of these cards would just fall out, maybe because my grip or whatever, just kind of going with the flow, then I would spread those out and just hover my pendulum over them. And sometimes I would feel more of a pull towards one side or the other. And if maybe 3 or 4 cards came out, I would just position my pendulum in one area and with my other hand bring the card in front of it and just ask, is this card meant for so-and-so? And then it would either tell me yes or no, and then I would put it aside. So that's how I got a couple of them that were 2. And then I would repeat it just to make sure, and I would always get the same answer. Yes to some, no to some, and always the same. So that's another technique that I used for yesterday's card pull. I also like to use my energy, so just like either rubbing my hands or focusing the energy on my hands. I like putting my right hand on the ground just to ground myself and using my left hand to hover over the deck. And I would do these when a couple of them would fall out. And I wasn't sure if like all of them were for that person. So I would just hover my hand over each card, and you would get like, well, I feel like some tingling sensation in my fingertips that were stronger in one than the other, to see which one or ones were for it, because sometimes I would get 2, like I've said. And sometimes I even use my own hand as a pendulum, like as I'm hovering over it, one finger will, like I always close my eyes so that I can really focus in. And sometimes, like just as I kept going side to side, one would end up touching my ring finger. And that's how I pick it. So I used a couple of different techniques, took a little bit of breaks in between them, and always focused on the person that I was pulling the card for, cleansing it from the previous reading. I usually don't do that many at once. And yeah, those were the techniques I use. And there are a couple other techniques, and the technique for tarot is a lot different. So yeah, you can ask specific questions. Like I said, for this tarot reading, I just asked whatever card was meant for that person. And I really appreciate all the feedback and participation. I love hearing that they resonated with you. And if they didn't, you can let me know too. I won't be offended. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm thinking of doing these once a month and maybe limiting it to maybe 5 or 10 people, just so that I don't stay up so late doing them. But that was my own fault. I did have fun doing them. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.